Thank you for joining us. The webinar will begin shortly. Welcome to today's webinar on travel insurance. My name is Audra Farrell with the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, where I'm the director of the Minnesota Alumni Travel Program. I've been in my role since 2015, but the Alumni Association has partnered with USI Travel Insurance Services since 2005. So they've been our trusted travel insurance provider for over 15 years now. And as I've heard from many alumni who are considering making travel plans, I thought this would be a great time to host a webinar to address the what if questions that are plaguing us all concerning travel. Before we get started with the presentation, I would like to thank our Alumni Association members and donors for making initiatives like the Alumni Webinar Series possible. If you're interested in learning more about the Alumni Association, visit us at umnalumni.org/membership. Also helping to make this webinar possible is the Minnesota Alumni Market, which is an online store that sells products made by alumni-owned businesses. Not only is it a great way to support both alumni entrepreneurs and the UMAA, but they sell great quality products too. Check it out at mnalumnimarket.com. And of course, also making this webinar possible today is the Minnesota Alumni Travel Program, which offers more than 40 destinations annually and gives you the opportunity to explore amazing locations all around the world with alumni and friends. We have our 2021 and some of our 2022 tours listed on our website already. I invite you to check back towards the end of February when we'll have our entire 2022 schedule available online. Or you can contact me anytime with travel program questions at umtravel@umn.edu. We have several other webinars coming up, including the two you see here. Learn more and register at umnalumni.org/events. Participants are welcome to ask questions. We will be monitoring the Q&A while our presenter is speaking, so please use the Q&A button to submit your questions, and we will do our best to address all your questions before our time is up today. Okay, well, next we have a couple of polls that we'd like to invite audience members to participate in before we get started with our presentation. You can participate in the polls anonymously. The first question is, I am planning my next trip in 2021, 2022, 2023, or I am not sure or not currently planning travel. I'll give everyone a minute to answer. We'll just give it another moment while answers are coming in. Thank you everyone for your responses. Looks like 53% are planning a trip in 2021, 30% are planning in 2022, and no one answered for 2023. I guess we're not thinking quite that far ahead. And 18% said that they are not sure or not currently planning travel. All right, we have one more poll question. When traveling in the past, I purchased travel insurance. Always, most of the time, some of the time, almost never, or never. Okay, we will end the poll. All right. Looks like we had 11% responding always, 19% responding most of the time, 31% some of the time, 24% almost never, and 15% said never. Thank you all for responding to our poll. All right. Now I'd like to present our presenter, Angel Ramos, who is an account manager at USI Affinity Travel Insurance Services, where he has worked for the past 5 years. Prior to coming to USI, Angel had 3 decades of travel industry experience from sales to customer service and has been a certified travel counselor since 1991. We are also pleased to welcome USI's Head of the Travel Division, Karen Johnson, and Myron Tate, USI's Director of Travel Customer Service and Operations. Thank you for joining us, Angel, Myron, and Karen.
Sorry. Thank you, Audra, for inviting me. I forgot I didn't know I was on mute. Just want to let you know that I'm just going to give a little bit of a presentation and explanation of why the importance of travel insurance, as well as benefits and the descriptions of these benefits. We can have the Q&A towards the end. So I'll begin. So as you know, my name is Angel Ramos. Okay. So the first thing is why is travel insurance important? So the things we look at, it's usually what happens if a child, a parent, or a spouse ends up sick before your trip, during the trip, and you have to cancel or leave early. What if you become injured on your trip or sick, with some kind now, especially with COVID, you get that, you flew, you sprained an ankle, you got into an accident. Other reasons to be looking and taking consideration is terrorist incidents in either your destination city. And what if you're going on a trip and then, as you know, hurricanes and floodings and blizzards or any other weather related events? I'm sorry, we're having a little technical issue here. I apologize for this.
Angel, do you want to share back with me
Yes,
the screen control, and then I'll see if I can fix whatever's going on?
thank you, Audra. And I can just, if it's okay, I can tell you the next slide if possible.
Okay. Does that look right now?
So next slide, please. Okay. So taking advantage of the travel protection benefits. So the plan we offer for the University of Minnesota, it's the trip cancellation offers trip cancellation, trip interruption, travel delay, accident and sickness medical expense, emergency medical evacuation and repatriation, baggage loss and delay, misconnection, and much more. And coverage is available for specified covered reasons. And benefits refer to the plan always as you purchase it to see what those benefits are, specific benefits. Next slide, please. So here are the types of insurance plans. So we're going to start out with trip cancellation, which is the most common and most comprehensive in terms of the benefits. Next slide, please. Before I continue, just let you know this document contains a highlight of the plan. So it's very important that you please read the plan carefully of the insured benefits that you purchase to see the exclusions and limitations. You can also visit the website, which is my.travelinsured.com/UMN to view the plan document in detail per your state. Next, please. So, what are the cover reasons for trip cancellation? So, this is just giving you one of the brief sections, and I guess is one of the most important ones. And it says that if you or a family member or traveling companion, as well as a business partner's death occurs before your trip, or if there's a sickness or an injury before the trip that requires you to be medically treated and cannot go on that trip. Uh, then other listed below also has hijacked, quarantine, required to serve on jury duty. These are few of the benefits for trip cancellations. There's more specifics on the plan itself. Next, please. We have the unannounced strike, inclement weather, mechanical breakdown that causes complete cessations. And if you or a traveling companion is in the military, those are others as well. Next, please. The next benefit of the plan is trip interruption. This is usually similar to the trip cancellation, but it's based on while you're on your trip already. Next, please. And as you can see, the trip interruption is similar to the trip cancellation. It also compares to something happens to you, a traveling companion, or a death of a family member, as well as a sickness. But these are situations while you're on your trip and you need to interrupt your trip. So basically, what it does is it just goes on and covers any part of the trip you did not use due to this situation or this covered reason, and you needed to come home. Next, please. Same as the trip cancellation, including with announced strikes, unannounced strikes, within 18 consecutive hours of a common carrier, any inclement weathers that causes complete cessations of 18 consecutive hours of that common carrier, and mechanical breakdown that causes complete cessation at least 18 hours of the common carrier. Next, please. The next two, it's travel medical and emergency medical evacuation insurance. That usually basically what it is, it's if you're on your trip and one of these situations occurs, whether you get injured or sick and you need medical treatment, that's part of the plan that's covered. And if the physician deems necessary for you to return home once all treatment is done, emergency medical evacuation will then be part of the plan returning you home. Next, please. So I'll go through a few examples, and this is part of the trip cancellation. So it says here, John purchased a travel insurance with trip cancellation coverage when he booked his annual 2-week vacation to Long Beach Island, New Jersey with his wife. And unfortunately, John was admitted to the hospital with chest pains days before the scheduled departure. Since the confinement was not related to a pre-existing condition, he was able to file a claim under the trip cancellation benefit. The policy reimbursed the trip cost for $5,850 for both him and his wife. Next, please. On trip interruption, this couple, and I do want to reiterate, I do want to clarify as well and mention, as you notice, the trips I'm mentioning here are within the states. A lot of people do think that, well, if I'm traveling within the US, I do not need, why would I need travel insurance? So basically, most people, as you know, your travel insurance that you have home won't cover everything on your trip. So if there is anything out of pocket that's additional to what your plan covers, then the policy will assist. So in this example, is the same situation what I was trying to explain. So it says here, in this trip interruption, the Acetos arrived at their upstate New York vacation rental destination, and they had gotten settled in for a week at the mountains. So when a severe storm came through, it knocked down all the electrical lines, leaving them completely without electricity for the remainder of their stay, which was 3 days. The trip interruption benefit reimbursed them for the balance of the prepaid non-refundable trip costs, which was the 3 remaining days they had on that rental, plus the two guided hiking trips and fishing trips they had. And that totaled up to 1,500. So trip interruption, again, not this wasn't, thank God it wasn't an accident or an injury or a death, but it did have to do with severe weather. Next, please. This person is actually with an injury. So Sandy, this is actually one of our coworkers, one of our colleagues purchased our travel insurance, and she stated that she was on vacation with her family in Virginia. I mean, from her family in Virginia, visiting family in California. While she was there, she experienced a sudden and unexpected severe sciatica and had to be rushed to the hospital with an ambulance. So after all the tests and 6 hours in the emergency room, she was released with pain medication and a plan for treatment when she returned home. So even though she had found a hospital that was in network with her health plan, she still had to pay a deductible and copays out of pocket. Her travel insurance plan reimbursed her out of pocket costs of $1,100. So these are the benefits we look at. Even if we're traveling domestically, the travel insurance benefit will apply for these types of situations in case. Next, please. The emergency medical evacuation. This is Rob and Maggie. They were spending a week in Punta Cana. After a day at the beach, Rob began complaining about back pain and dizziness, and he later became very confused and started speaking incoherently. While waiting for the emergency responders, Maggie contacted their assistance provider to help. So by the time Rob was seen by the doctor, he was no longer lucid. He was diagnosed with a stomach virus, but the diagnosis did not explain his confusion or dizziness. So, upon the completion of the consult with Rob's treating doctor, their assistant provider medical suggested a few additional tests, and they communicated with Maggie throughout. And after the assistant provider spoke with Rob's treating doctor, they decided that it was in Bob's best interest to receive further treatment in the US. The assistant provider arranged an emergency air ambulance transport from Punta Cana to Fort Lauderdale, where Rob was diagnosed and treated with meningitis. So, started out as a little stomach pain and ended up with meningitis. So it's good to have the policy and these with this, then they have to worry about who to reach out to, who to contact for these types of assistance. Next, please. The big FAQ of the moment is what plans offer for COVID. So as you know, the pandemic has gotten, as months go by, more and more worse. I think we're at approximately 427,000 deaths. So the questions we've been getting since the beginning of this pandemic is, what if I or a family member gets sick with COVID before or during my trip? Will I have coverage? So the trip cancellation and trip interruption coverage may apply in the instance as COVID will be treated like any other sickness. Medically, emergency medical coverage and emergency medical evacuation coverage would also apply if you become sick with COVID while on your trip. COVID is treated like any other sickness when it comes to the pre-existing condition exclusions. So purchase your plan early to be eligible for the pre-existing condition exclusion waiver. I do want to add to this, when it comes to COVID, it's a matter of being sick and treated for that sickness. It's not being positive, not having any symptoms. That's totally different. The question number two is, what if COVID prevents me from traveling somewhere on my trip? For example, Hawaii is requiring people to quarantine for 14 days upon arrival. Could I cancel and use my travel insurance to get a refund? The answer is yes. If the destination to which you are traveling is requiring travelers similarly situated to you to be quarantined for a period of time upon entry, you may be eligible for trip cancellation coverage. It's provided the quarantine that you would face is in effect within 14 days of your scheduled departure date. So you must cancel your trip during this 14-day period prior to your scheduled departure date. And as always, claims must be reviewed on an individual basis to ensure eligibility. Third question is, What if there's a new wave of COVID infections and I'm worried about traveling? Will my travel insurance cover my trip? And the answer there is no. Travel insurance does not cover the fear of traveling. You would have you would need to have Cfar, which is cancel for any reason, for coverage in this situation. Now you could also visit the link, it's just visit our coronavirus information center, and that's at travelinsure.com/resources/COVID-19 info. Next, please. So if something happens, who will you call? So both plans, worldwide concierge and travel assisted services. We do have a 24-hour emergency assistance that's happened with Maggie and her husband from anywhere around the world. Travel planning assistance. There's a concierge services. And then lean on this 24 hours, 7 days, 365 days resource to answer your trip related questions, help you in case of emergencies, or just simply take advantage of the vacation planning support before and during your trip. Next, please. So back to the previous, speaking about the previous slide, featured benefits, needing Cfar. What is Cfar? The Cfar is an acronym for cancel for any reason, and is an upgrade, an additional upgrade on certain plans if you meet the requirements. And I'll get more into detail a bit later. So why should you upgrade to a plan for detail? So plan to Cfar. So having the Cfar benefits give you the utmost flexibility and financial security of your trip. This benefits allows you to cancel your trip for literally any reason at all and still be reimbursed for most of your prepaid non-refundable trip expenses. So without Cfar, your plan includes trip cancellation benefit, but you can be reimbursed for that benefit if your reason for canceling your trip falls under one of the reasons specified in your plan. Recently, many travelers were surprised to see that most trip cancellations due to COVID-19 were not covered by their insurance, as pandemics are generally not covered by the travel insurance. This is the case for almost all travel insurance carrier plans, but travelers with Cfar did indeed have that coverage. Next, please. So what do you need to know? How do you upgrade? So you add the upgrade when making your plan purchase. And you must purchase the plus or the elite plan within 21 days of your initial trip deposit to be eligible for this upgrade. You also must ensure all prepaid non-refundable trip costs. If you increase your trip costs later, you must then adjust your plan accordingly within 21 days of making those additional arrangements in order to maintain your Cfar coverage. And how do you make a claim using your Cfar coverage? Well, first, you have to cancel with your travel organizer at least 2 days before your scheduled departure to be eligible to make a Cfar claim. Then you contact the USI Travel Insurance Services or the plan claims administrator to file the claim. And please know that cancel for any reason, better known as Cfar, is not available to residents of New York State. Next, please. With the bonus, with purchasing the additional Cfar to the plan, it brings a bonus, which what we call the sister IFAR, interruption for any reason. And IFAR stands for, as I said, interruption for any reason, and it is an upgrade available on our plans plus and elite levels if you meet the same requirements as Cfar. Cfar is not available on most other travel insurance plans. It's a unique benefit to our travel insurance select plan. Why is Cfar coverage valuable? Well, IFAR. So like Cfar, having the interruption for any reason benefit gives you the utmost flexibility, financial security of your trip. And this benefit allows you to interrupt your trip after it has started for literally any reason at all and still be reimbursed of your prepaid non-refundable trip expense. So interruption for any reason, it asks here, how do you get that coverage? Well, it's included the moment you purchase the cancel for any reason coverage. It goes hand in hand. So if you get the cancel for any reason upgrade on the plan, you automatically have the interruption for any reason. So you buy your plan within 21 days of your initial trip deposit to be eligible for the cancel for any reason and interruption for any reason upgrade. Now, please understand that interruption for any reason is not available to residents in Alaska, Indiana, Kansas, New Hampshire, New York, and Washington states. Next, please. So, why purchase your plan early? So, early purchase advantages. They're available on the Plus and Elite plan levels of the Select plan. Cancel for any reason and interruption for any reason. Additional costs apply. So, then you also have the pre existing medical condition waiver. The exclusion for pre-existing condition for medical coverage can be waived for certain plan levels if you meet early purchase requirements. Also requires the 21 days from initial deposit. And then it also has the benefit of the financial default coverage. Next, please. You could go into University of Minnesota's website, which is my.travelinsure.com/UMN. Here you could get a understand, see more the Coronavirus Information Center. So it has more FAQs with answers for you. You can also check the policy on the product info and see the plans per your state, as well as get a quote or purchase online. Next, please. All right, and at this moment, we are open for any questions.
Okay, Angel, somebody asked, what about pre-existing conditions?
Okay, can that be a little bit more specific on that question? What is considered to be pre-existing condition?
Okay, maybe we will come back to that one to give that audience member the opportunity to expand upon what they meant. That was the extent of the question. So we'll return to that one. So our next question is, how much extra does Cfar typically cost, say, percent of the policy?
And I have Karen Johnson to correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe it is 4.5%, I mean 45% of the trip cost.
Actually, typically Cfar has a load on it of anywhere of 1.55 to 1.7%. So let's say that your base cost was $100 for the travel insurance. If you wanted Cfar, typically that would be, if it's a 1.6 load, that would be $60 more. So it would be $160. There again, if it was a 65% load, that would make the $100 premium go up to 165. If it was a 1.55 load, it would be $155.
Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next question is your travel insurance available only for trips through the University of Minnesota? And I can actually answer that one. The answer is no. We also work with USI for travelers who are out on their own, who are doing their own trips. So if your trip is not through the Minnesota Travel Program, you can also purchase the USI insurance. And Angel, feel free to add to what I just said.
No, that is correct. And they can also go through the same website that's with the /UMN. So my.travelinsure.com/UMN and do the purchases there.
All right. Okay, so the pre-existing conditions question is if you become, I think it's ill prior to the trip and need to cancel, is there a danger that USI would deny because of a pre-existing condition?
Okay, I can answer that one with a little bit of an example. So usually, depending on the injury or the condition that you have and when you purchased, so I can use an example as cancer. I mean, it's something I wish nothing of that on anyone. But if someone has cancer and they are on remission, So the intention of purchasing the policy is at the time of purchasing the policy, you do have to be in good health. Now, it doesn't mean that you have had a past injury or sickness, but at the time you are okay to travel when you purchase the policy. So that cancer went in remission a year, 6 months, year and a half. You purchase the policy within that 21-day window. And let's say your trip is for another 6 months. 6 months later, unfortunately, cancer came back and you need to cancel. Well, that's where one, it's not considered a pre existing because you were in remission and you were okay to purchase. So the policy may be claimed. The cancellation may be claimed. If Myron wants to chime in, he can.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that we want to kind of highlight here is the 21-day window, so that the traveler will be eligible for the pre-existing condition waiver. So as long as it's part of what we call the early purchase benefits. So if the insurance is purchased within 21 days of the initial deposit, the benefit that you get there is the pre-existing condition waiver, where you don't have to worry about those types of pre-existing conditions. So I think that's one of the main things that I just wanted to highlight. There is a definite benefit to getting your insurance early, getting it within that 21-day window.
Thank you, Myron.
Yep, and it's Karen. I'd like to expand on that a little bit. So how the pre-existing condition works, it's any illness, disease, or other condition that happens 60 days immediately following the effective date of the coverage. So if you purchase the coverage today, they're going to look back to see what kind of medical conditions that you had in the last 60 days. And that would be considered a pre-existing medical condition. Again, as Myron said, if you purchase within that 21 days of the initial trip deposit, then that exclusion gets waived and you don't have to worry about it. Now, another part of the pre-existing condition is basically it has to be a illness or disease or other condition that's actually happened. It's either manifested itself, worsened, or became acute, and you've had symptoms within that 60-day period prior to purchasing the insurance. Now, one other item that I would like to kind of reflect on here is, let's say that you're already taking prescription drugs for a certain, let's say diabetes, and you do the same dosage every single day. That actually is not considered a pre-existing condition, because if the condition is treated and is controlled solely by taking prescription medicines, and your treatment remains the same for that 60 days prior to when you purchased the plan, that actually is not considered a pre-existing condition because it has been controlled and it has been stabilized. I hope that helps a little bit more.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. All right, we have another question. It's, do you sell a policy for the year if you travel a lot?
We do have another plan if you're constantly traveling, usually for work. And that is actually, I would recommend reaching out to the customer service team and they will be happy to explain it. But yes, we do have a plan that will cover you for a whole year. Not trip cancellation necessarily, but it does to the other benefits.
Correct. So this is Myron. So we have what we call our Voyager plan it's a Voyager annual program. It does cover a lot of medical and things like that. The trip cancellation benefit it does not have. So you want to make sure that that with the Voyager program, make sure that it's right, that is the right program for you. And to Angel's point, our customer service representatives are licensed and they are very well versed in all of the products and services that we sell. So the customer service, if you have further questions regarding it, the information is on our website. It's called the Voyager annual travel program. And then you can also feel free to contact the customer service team and they will walk you through it.
Okay, great. What is the definition of family member if you need to cancel or interrupt your trip and then you want to make a claim.
Family members is spouses, children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, stepchildren, and step grandchildren. Practically anyone except cousins.
Yeah, so basically it's Karen. It's you or your traveling companion's legal spouse or common law spouse where that is legal. Legal guardian, your son or daughter. Son or daughter can be adopted, foster, as in-law or stepdaughter or son. Brothers and sisters, that also includes step or in-laws. Your parents, again, it includes step or in-laws. Your grandparents, again, includes in-laws as well. Grandchildren, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, or a domestic partner. So it's quite broad.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, another question is, if I was denied boarding to travel on a cruise and catching up was not feasible, will you pay 100% for the cruise?
Well, the cancellation with the airlines, usually what they'll do is, and in most cases, they would accommodate you to get another flight to to your cruise.
Well, I think they were saying if I was denied boarding on a cruise, I think is the question,
Or denied boarding on
on
a
the plane.
I understood denied boarding on a flight and they had a Mr. Cruise.
Well, the question says denied boarding on the cruise. So I'm assuming that they were asking about getting onto the cruise, not.
So what's the reason for them being denied getting on the cruise?
That's a good question. The participant didn't specify that. I'm guessing that your answer would depend upon the reason for the denial for
Right.
boarding.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll give that audience member a
Yep. Typically, I will say, generally
clarify that.
speaking, if you're just denied access to board an airplane or a cruise, that's not going to be covered. Again, we would have to know what the reason is, though, in order to confirm that.
Okay, maybe they'll come back with a little bit more
Yep.
specific question. All right, for now we'll move on. Another participant said, I'm confused by the 60 days and 21 days described earlier. Can you clarify? Is it pre-existing condition 60 days before purchase of the plan?
Yep. So in pre-existing condition is probably one of the most confusing parts in any travel program. So yes, so I guess your trigger or your look back for a pre-existing condition is 60 days prior to the date that you purchase the travel insurance. Now that 21 days comes into effect is if you purchase the travel insurance within the 21 days of your initial deposit of the trip, then that pre-existing exclusion is waived. So that would not come into effect. I hope that cleared it up a little bit more, but it is the one item that causes confusion for people.
Sure. Thank you for clarifying.
Mhm.
All right, the next question is, can travel insurance be used in combination with other insurance, such as that which is available because of purchasing the travel through a credit card like American Express?
Well, I can actually answer that one because I used to work for American Express Platinum's insurance team.
Perfect.
I knew that at one point that plan was it is pretty much a basic plan. You could use it in combination. The American Express Platinum plan, it's very vague and it only applies to the card member, not the others. Like if something happens to a family member or an in-law, as Karen mentioned earlier before, well, the plan is not going to cover because it's not specified to you as a card member. The benefits goes only to the card members. But yes, you can purchase the plan using an American Express, using any credit card.
And then related question, how is payment of medical expenses coordinated with one's regular health insurance?
So I'm assuming the question goes to who would be primary when it comes to the insurance in case of a medical claim.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Okay. Karen, if I'm not mistaken, the medical insurance will be considered to be primary.
So how it works is, right, your health insurance would be primary insurance, and then typically the medical expense components on this program are secondary. So that would cover your out-of-pocket deductibles that you may have, co-pays, things of that nature.
Great.
Now, I do
Okay.
want to add in there, not to confuse anybody, but the select elite plan, which is, let's say you go with good, better, best, it's the most robust plan that we have. That actually does give you primary medical. So if you are on a trip and you suddenly fall ill or get injured and have to go to a doctor or hospital, you actually, they will provide first dollar first, and then your medical wouldn't come into play. However, that is only on the elite. On the basic and the plus, you certainly do have the coverage, but again, it goes through your medical first, and then they pay whatever your medical insurance doesn't pay.
Okay. All right. We have some clarification on that earlier question. So the audience member meant to ask that if he wasn't able to get on his flight because it was overbooked and then couldn't catch up with his cruise, would the cruise then be covered 100% by insurance?
No, and that for the reason is the word overbooked. It's not a common carrier delay. It's say by weather because of malfunction of the common carrier was just overbooked. So my recommendation again as a former travel agent would be then the airline would be the one who should be compensating you as a traveler because they're the ones who overbooked the trip that you had already purchased.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I believe this question was answered, but maybe they wanted more clarity on this. So what is the definition of family member if you need to cancel or interrupt your trip for a claim? And then are there timelines to file a claim after the incident?
So as Karen mentioned, the family members it's really broad and it's as I mentioned earlier, it's pretty much everyone except cousins. So it goes from grandparents, whether in-laws, step to children and to nephews and nieces. Now, the other part of that question was what is the timeline to file a claim after the incident has happened? That would be, if I'm not mistaken, would be 15 months from when the incident, if it's an accident or a death, has occurred and you need to submit a claim.
Yeah, basically what the policy says is they want you to contact contact the third party administrator, which is the claims administrator, within 72 hours of the claim. However, they do have wording in there that says or as soon as reasonably possible. So we do encourage people, when they get back from their trip, if they did have a claim where they need reimbursement of expenses, they really should get that in as soon as possible. Technically, in the contract, I believe it gives you a year to file a claim, and after that, it can be denied for late notice.
Okay. Another person asked, we put money down for a cruise that is in August. The deposit was 4 months ago. Can we still buy insurance?
You could still buy insurance, but since it's outside of the 21-day window, the cancel for any reason or the pre-existing benefit will not be able to be added on.
Okay. And someone else asked, what if I defer my trip due to COVID? Will my travel insurance still cover me when I finally go on the trip, or am I limited to the original planned travel dates?
When they mean defer the insurance, you mean transfer the insurance to another trip?
I think that's what they mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
If,
I think that's the meaning.
Yeah, if your trip was canceled prior and you already have a travel insurance and you're applying it to a future trip, the benefits that you currently had when you first purchased it will be applied to.
Yep, so you can transfer it. So let's say that you had a trip this January and now you're transferring it to April. What you would do is call our customer service department and they would be able just to transfer those dates for you. And then if the trip costs goes up, let's say that you end up tagging on a few more days on it, or you end up doing something first class, or a 5-star hotel instead of a 4-star hotel, you would call up when you had those additional incurred trip costs, and then they would just add that to the policy, and whatever that additional premium is, you would pay it. But yes, we can definitely transfer dates when you're changing your plans. And we've seen a lot of this due to COVID. So our customer service department is very well versed in this.
Yeah. All right, another question. If I were to test positive for COVID while attempting to board a cruise, am I covered for the entire cost of the trip?
Testing positive before going on, it's not part of a covered reason because you're not being treated for sickness. The best recommendation here is to have the cancel for any reason plan, and still you would have to cancel the trip 2 days prior. So you come to see you, if especially nowadays every airline is requiring, it's like as well as other countries, that you test for COVID at least 72 hours prior, and you have 48 hours to cancel your policy. So usually if you get a quick test, you should know within 24 hours of getting it, but would not cover if you're at the gate and you tested positive and you need to cancel.
Yeah, I'm going to expand on that because we work with a lot of tour operators as well. And really, if you're going with a tour operator, this kind of really falls under their hat to work with the airlines and work with all the local officials and the governments in other countries as to how they're going to handle this. Particularly, let's say that if you went to Ireland and then you have to get the COVID test 3 days before, let's say you get the test, but it doesn't come back in that 3 days, and then they don't let you board to come back here. That isn't covered under the program. However, the tour operators really should be working with locals in order to come up with that. I know a lot of tour operators are right now working with hotels in Cancun, where Cancun hotels are actually doing COVID tests 72 hours prior to people going back to their home countries. And they are able to turn that around in 24 hours. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and a lot of hotels and some of these other companies that these tour operators do business with are really taking a proactive approach to ensure that these types of things don't happen.
Yes, COVID has made travel very complicated.
It really has. And actually, ASTA, which is one of the very large tour operation organizations that tour operators belong to, has actually reached out to the federal government and is lobbying to get this changed, because a 3-day turnaround is really tight and it is going to cause havoc for a lot of tour operators and their travelers. So they are trying to get the government to lessen these requirements, because they are going to cause problems.
Okay. Well, I think that is it for questions. Oh, one more came through. It says, I had a coronary bypass surgery. I don't have any heart symptoms now. If I develop chest pain, like the guy you had as your first example in the slides, then is this considered a pre-existing condition?
Yeah, it's Karen again. If you were stable for the last 60 days prior to purchasing the plan, and even if you were on some kind of medication, as long as that dosage has not changed and your condition has not changed in the last 60 days, then that would not be considered a pre-existing condition. The pre-existing condition is really when something happens that's acute, it worsens, or becomes evident within that 60-day period. So, if you had, heart surgery a year ago and you've been fine for a year, I mean, that's not a pre-existing condition for our programs. I mean, everyone's going to have some kind of health thing that's happened to them. But it's really what has happened, worsened, or become acute in the last 60 days prior to purchasing the plan. If you have a condition and it's been stable and medicine hasn't been changed and so forth and so on, you should be fine.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's the end of our questions. Angel, Karen, Myron, did you have anything further that you wanted to say?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me on this panel, and I hope if anyone else has any other questions, they can always reach out the customer service number. And as Myron knows, one of the representatives will be happy to assist them with any questions.
Yeah, it's Myron. I just want to reiterate that. So if you do have questions, please give us a call. Reach out to one of our representatives. We can walk you through the policy. We can walk you through additional scenarios or additional questions that you may have. We want to make sure that you are thoroughly educated before you actually take out the policy, so that you know exactly what the policy covers, how you will be covered on your trip, the security that you will have to go on your trip and not have to worry about anything. So please, if you do have questions, just reach out to the customer service team. You can also visit our website. We have a lot of information and FAQs out there as well that will be very, very helpful for you. So, and again, thanks for this opportunity to present the travel insurance program to you.
Well, thank you to the three of you for being with us today and answering questions and presenting the travel insurance. I know that it's been a good and very relevant topic as of late as people are considering traveling again. And for one, I'm looking forward to traveling again soon. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.